Well, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Marc, also known as Chiz. And thank you, firstly, to everybody that is tuning in. I'm joined today by Screamarts. How are you, mate?
Yo, I'm good. Thanks, mate.
You have just released your debut album on Mousetrap, Antithesis.
Yes, I did.
How does that feel, mate?
It feels pretty amazing actually. Because it was kind of like a long ongoing process as well. And I'm kind of not the most patient person, to be honest. Like it did take so much time to get it all finalized, but at least I could hold back on a lot of the final mixes and kind of tell the label I want to give you the last mixes like at the very last minute, so I can always go in and change something and kind of mix it again because kind of neurotic about these things, and that way I could kind of like do it quite well because then 1 month or 2 months before it actually released, I actually did one more sweep about all the tunes, and then I felt really secure about the mixes and all of these things. But yeah, super excited to have that out finally.
Love that. I think the whole scene was a bit excited when they found out that um, Mousetrap are starting to release other genres of music. So how did that sort of become a thing in the first place? You releasing this album on Mousetrap?
I think it came from more like Dead Mouse himself because he is kind of re experiencing drum and bass at the moment. And I think he was always a fan though because he released Noisia's first album, if I'm not mistaken. So there was already drum and bass on Mousetrap, but then there wasn't a lot of drum and bass for a long time. And he basically started playing one of my tracks, which was ironically a dubstep track. It was Gluttonous. It came out on. It's like this deep dubstep track that came out on Dispatch, and just a fan sent it to me, and I was like, oh damn, like that was not on my like list of expectations. I was like, what is going on? You know, there's like that mouse playing one of my tracks. I didn't expect someone like that mouse playing my music because I felt like vibe wise, it was a totally different thing. But then he also played my track Boombox, which ironically also came out on Dispatch. And I was like, oh yeah, there's something definitely going on there. So I just sent the label some tracks initially, and I did get an answer back from the label, and they said, yeah, please send us more drum and bass because I kind of sent a lot more of my alias sound, my Lophane, like garage and housey vibes, and because I felt like that was the right thing for Mousetrap, you know, and but they said definitely more drum and bass, and then I haven't heard in a while from them, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe that didn't work out after all. Um, and ironically, a lot of the tracks I sent were rejected from a lot of my usual labels, and now it almost feels like it was some kind of destiny thing happening. I'm not the most spiritual person, but it was so weird that the tracks that ultimately would be signed by that mouse were kind of all rejected in a way before, and I was like, oh yeah, I think I need to try again to, but this time send it to that mouse himself. And funnily enough, he actually wrote back, and we had a little session on Discord, and he took a short listen to all the tracks and then basically said, I'll take all of them. And I was like, what do you mean? I
Wow.
just sent him a bunch of tracks. Like some of them were not finished, some of them, and that's why the album is what it is, because it was all these different type of vibes, because I kind of wanted to show my range, and I wanted to show like I can do really heavy neuro stuff. I can do more breaky stuff as well. I can do stuff with vocals, and I can also do totally different genres. It was more like to show him like a portfolio in a way, and I didn't expect it all to be compiled into one album, which is also why I call it Antithesis in the end, because one track kind of contradicts the other in a way and has almost nothing to do with the other, but it's all me as well. You know, it's all math, and I think that's what led to all of that. So he basically just invited the label owner then to the chat and said, "Yo, please make everything happen. Sign all of these things." I even took out one track and stuff, or two tracks, because in the end it didn't align with my vision. But yeah, that's how it all came together. It was actually super easy and smooth. I didn't expect that, but very awesome. Yeah,
Love that. Love that. And as you say, like that is almost like you could naturally call that antithesis at that point, because antithesis, by definition, it means like the direct opposite of something. So
yeah,
you've been submitting these tracks and they've where you'd usually have them signed to such a label, you know, as an artist, you would obviously create a piece of art with a label in mind. So yeah, the fact that the ones that maybe got rejected from your usual labels, and you know, Dead Mouse and Mousetrap have sort of accepted them. Does that so Antithesis, does that sort of resonate with you as an artist?
in general, ironically, I had this idea before it even happened. And I remember I had a Facebook status about it actually. And I remember that there was a very torn response to my question, because my question was, I'm kind of like a versatile artist in a way. You know, I play multiple instruments. I like very soft, kind of almost cheesy music, and I love very hard, very complex and complicated music as well. And I always felt like if I ever did an album, I kind of want all of that to be in there and to be a bit chaotic in a way, because that's just who I am. I will listen to some maybe a little bit cheesy house, you know, once in a while, but then I'd really enjoy some very complex music like Cohen Sound or Noisia or something. So I feel like it's quite broad in my music taste is quite broad in a way. And I was like, what do you guys think if I'd mixed that, you know, one track totally contradicting the other? Ironically, that's exactly what I said. I didn't actually plan that when I sent it out like that, but somehow subconsciously it must have happened, because I said that before, literally in a status, and I was asking people about what do you think if one track is super heavy and the next is super mellow? Like, would you be up for something like that? Something that almost contradicts itself and is basically the opposite of a concept album, which I'm also a big fan of. So there's also another contradiction there.
Yeah, man.
And people were very torn about it. You know, that most people were like, I don't know if that works, because people will expect one thing and then they'll hear another thing, and then like maybe it gets them confused. And but I was kind of excited about that idea, you know, to show everything you got in one project, and to have an album that can be listened to by so many different people, because they might skip a track or two. I'm not mad about that, you know, because they might be like, oh, this is way too heavy for my taste. But the next track, they're gonna be like, oh, this garage vibe, you know, I really feel this one, you know, and with the vocals and everything. I feel like it really has something for everyone, and that embodies drum and bass for me as well. Because so many times we see drum and bass as these separate subgenres, and one guy hates jump up and hates this and that, and I was like, well, I kind of want to combine that all again, and see that there is basically a connection to all of the subgenres as well in drum and bass, as well as other genres. But there's a lot of
Absolutely.
inspiration in that album, from Nero to deep to jump up to just weird IDM stuff. So yeah, I think that was kind of the goal, to bring it all together as well.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think that definitely like resonates with you as an artist, because I hate to pigeonhole artists, and I think you're a classic example of that. You've mentioned obviously your alias, Milo Fane, and if you look into like your earlier like releases, there was a lot of like deep atmospheric stuff. You've also released like you mentioned your gluttonous track, which Dead Mouse played. So I would definitely not pigeonhole you as an artist. Um, how was it for you like creatively then? So like if you could like take us into the studio like for the creation of this album, like what sort of mindset do you have when you're creating? Do you have different mindsets for different tracks, or is it sort of just all natural, like go with the flow with how you're feeling at the time, maybe?
Well, I feel like the best way for me to go about it is most of the time going with the flow and not overthinking it too much. And I think that's why the sounds come out so different, because I'll sit down and maybe I'm in a bad mood or in a nostalgic mood or in a grievous mood, or in a super good mood or just in a like experimental mood. And this will definitely change the outcome a lot, because sometimes I sit down and I'm like, oh, I just heard this massive banger somewhere in my promos or something, and I kind of want to make something really heavy today. And then it might come out as not heavy at all. So it just really is, it's mostly going with the flow and experimenting and trying things out. And with a lot of tracks of the album, I found this new obsession as well, where I would just record my bass and my guitar and then try to resample those and make them sound almost like synthesizers. And I think that gave me a lot of inspiration as well to kind of combine these things, have a bass line that's basically sounds like a Reese, but it isn't a Reese, it's actually a real bass. I feel like that led to a lot of cool experimentation and a lot of fun in the studio, and therefore for a very great flow. Because if you're inspired and in a great flow, I think the best stuff happens, because you forget everything about your life while you do it. I so often end up going hunched back like to the toilet, because I just totally forgot to pee or eat or do anything. And then I'll literally walk like all crooked like, because I couldn't hold it if it was a normal moment, but because I was just like stuck for 6 hours in front of the PC, I noticed how much I actually had to pee, and how concentrated I was and how locked in I was. And I feel like that's always the best tunes, because they don't let you go, and you're kind of like having an antenna to something, and you just keep going, and you always know what to do and what to do next, and you can't stop because you already know what to do next. So you're doing something, and then the next thought comes, and you're like, oh, now I know what to do, and now I know what to do, and now I know what to do. And obviously, there's overcomplicated tracks as well, where you have to think a little bit about the sound design and all of that, and they can still be cool tracks. I'm just saying, sometimes it's like this thing that just pulls you, and that was with a lot of tracks in the album, because I really could let go. And with Road to Glory, for example, I was sure it wasn't gonna get signed anywhere, because it was just this rock idea I had. It was just a kind of a rock tune that I wrote on my guitar and bass, and I had these kind of more realistic sounding drums with it. And but then it turned into this very euphoric type of old school almost dubstep drop, like 2012 almost sounding, but with a modern production.
Yeah, man.
And I was like, this is too weird. I'm not sure people, and it was apparently the most popular track in the promo that they sent out. So it's always surprising, these type of things.
Yeah, man. I'm laughing on the inside that you're getting locked in so hard that you're forgetting to go to the toilet. Love that, man. Love
Yeah.
that. That's how you know that like he is. Screamarts is locked on. I love it. I absolutely love it, mate. So talk to us about there's a few collaborations on the album, obviously with Bloxburg, our friend from One More Thing, Yatuza. Absolutely love Yatuza.
Yeah,
Hijack
man,
and
great guy.
Purple Velvet Curtains as well. What was it like collaborating with these awesome artists on this project?
It was actually pretty cool with Bloxback, because you mentioned it first. It was actually such a long back and forth, which was so funny. Like in the beginning, it was just this track, that was way less heavy. You know, it was like way less heavy. And I was kind of planning on the vocals going over the drop instead of before the drop. So I kind of had to carve out everything. So there's space for vocals. But then how creative processes work, you know, Bianca kind of sang it in a different way and was more focused on the intro. So we ended up shifting the whole track around, and ended up adding piano and chords, and that were fitting with the vibes. But then, since the track was relatively empty, I made the drop super heavy as well, but at the same time melodic. So it was a very fun challenge to work on that tune. And there's been a lot of versions. There's been a lot of versions. And in the end, Bianca and I decided that the kind of grim message that the song has about mental health, that we kind of wanted to shift that towards the end. And we decided to add more major chords during the end part, and have her say that she will get over it in some sort of way, and kind of uh, leave it on a positive spin.
Love
I
it.
think that really worked because it's this storm of emotions, these walls, you know, that you break through. And I kind of tried to represent that with this almost wall shaped bass as well. You know, it's like super broad and thick, the bass, almost like a wall, you know, and then towards the end you break through the wall, and it kind of breaks open, and the chords come in, and there's so much room for her vocals. It's almost like she can finally breathe, you know, for the first time, because she was always interrupted by these emotional, stormy feelings of these walls that were kind of represented with the bass. I felt like this really made it a round experience in the end. In the beginning, it's all vulnerable, and then you feel the storm of emotions coming during the drop, and it's this back and forth between this internal struggle, you know, and then the second drop and the struggle comes, but it sounds a bit more hopeful already, like you're breaking through that, and then the end. So that was an amazing record to work on, and so many emotions in it. And Bianca obviously killed that, you know.
Yeah,
Love
man.
working with her, but definitely work with her again. And yeah, with Yatuza and Hijack MC, it was quite funny because Yatuza came to visit me in Vienna, and then we basically sketched a lot of the track already, and it was like quite a cool mix of like Nero and Deep already, and we had a few different back and forths with feedback sessions online, and then we decided to take Liam Hijack MC on that. I'm not actually sure anymore. I think, yeah, exactly. I already had a tune with Liam, and I thought it didn't really work out like on my end. I loved the vocals, and the track just was missing something. And initially, I thought it was missing vocals, but in the end, it wasn't just the best idea I've ever had, basically.
Love it.
And then I said, well, let's just scrap that and try to put it on the track I started with Yatuza, and it fitted really perfectly. And I was like, oh yeah, that's good.
Love it.
That's gonna work.
With
And that's how it came together.
love it. With so funny, well, not funny story, just a story about like myself as a journalist. Yatuza was actually the first artist I ever interviewed for One More Thing.
Nice. That's cool.
Absolutely amazing guy. Would this have so the you just mentioned that he came to see you. Would this have been on his sort of like European tour last
Yes.
summer? So he just probably played his 100% Yakuza set at Let It Roll. It would have been around that
Yeah.
time, wouldn't it? Love that.
Yeah.
I interviewed Emmanuel when he was staying in Staines in the UK at the time, and we had this amazing conversation where he's originally from Argentina, isn't he? And he is a massive Ali G fan, and Ali G is from a place called Staines. He's from Staines, and
Mm.
yeah, he was just absolutely buzzing to be staying in Staines and sharing the same stomping ground as Ali G. And yeah, just a really cool guy, and I love him as a producer. He's wicked. He's
That's epic. I didn't know that. That is funny. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely great guy. So what about the track with purple velvet curtains? Also an absolutely brilliant track, man.
Yeah, I love the guy, and I'm not sure which. I think I've heard track with Hoax. I'm not sure anymore what the name was, and I was like, this MC really got the flow that I'm looking for in my tracks, and I was like, it's kind of such a perfect voice for my tracks as well because it's kind of dark and deep, but still a little bit higher than my favorite keys to work in. So I kind of felt like it sits perfectly on top of my bass lines, the voice, and I was like, this is a good combination. Obviously, I didn't know where I was going to go. I just hit him up and I said, I have this idea, and it was way more Nero-ish at the time. It was called Trinity back then because it was like a triplet. It's still triplet in a lot of the parts, but it was way more heavy. And then I just kind of carved it out for him and made it more minimal and more space for his vocal. And I think it was a really good decision for the track in general because then it amps up and has a little bit of its original background coming in again with the more heavy Nero sounds. I think that was kind of like a really nice mix of deeper Nero, which is one of my favorite mixes in drum and bass anyway, to have the mix, especially because I would count a lot of minimal tracks as Nero actually, or at least old school Nero. If you listen to old Address and optical records and you listen to maybe modern DLR and break tunes, it's more Nero than deep, in the original sense. So I like the mix as well, like to just, and I play with it by using minimal inspiration and modern Nero. I think it leads to a very interesting thing. Artists like Emperor do this a lot, I feel like, where they have this super minimal type of way, but it's still Nero as well at the same time. And I love that sound. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that came together really naturally. There wasn't really any, it was really smooth, really. It's very easy to work with him, with really good sounding vocals already. We put it together. I tried to fit it better to the vocals because there was obviously a lot going on in a more neurofunk sounding track. Carved that out, added the clap instead of the heavy snare, and then kind of kept the more heavy part for after his vocal drops. And I really like that way of having the verse start on the drop,
Yep.
which really led to an interesting sound because very often it's a verse and then it's a drop, and this time I thought it's so sick to have the verse on the drop. Really, it was a very smooth experience. There was no big issues with that track. It just naturally and smoothly came together, and obviously that's a good thing.
Yeah, love that, man. Love that, man. I think it's fair to say that you're a very big advocate for collaborations.
Yeah.
Seen you collaborate with the likes of like Vengeant, Enter. These are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head. How important is it to collaborate with artists?
To me, it's that subject is very deep because I learned everything by myself, especially the first few years, and it's kind of isolating in a way because you are off if you're not off partying, or if you're just the nerd basically who makes beats, and you don't have anyone to relate to in that field. It can be isolating. So I really hold that moment dear when I got to meet Manta in Salzburg, because a friend of mine said, "Oh, you both guys make drum bass music. You should like link up and make some music." I think Manta was very skeptical in the beginning because he was also like the only producer basically in Salzburg left in a way, making drum bass. And he was more educated, way more educated than me. He was like a full-time student in music production, and I was just this dude who did sounds on his father's old MacBook, um, actually Mac Pro. And but that's what I mean. I learned so much from these sessions, because he just had all this actually practical knowledge and I had all the crazy scientist knowledge. And I think the combination was actually great because he had all the really good knowledge about frequency response and all of these things. And I had all the just chuck a bunch of shit together and add loads of sound effects and distortion and make weird stuff from weird sources. And the weirdness with the more technical part led to really interesting results to me. And I hold that very dearly because that really helped me with the more technical side. And I think it helped him with experimenting a little bit more and being a bit more crazy with it. And that's why I hold collabs very close to my heart, because you can always learn from another individual, and it's always two brains looking at a problem instead of one brain as well. And very often more unique and interesting tracks happen because there's two people working on it. And in terms of success as well, because it's basically like a thing I always say: when I like something, there's a big chance other people will like it because it's one brain. But when two different people with different upbringings both like it, then it's even more likely that people are going to resonate with it because two brains already resonate with it in creating it.
Yeah, man.
And I feel like you can create, it can also massively fail. Sometimes it just doesn't work out at all. It's just the visions don't end up colliding in the way you thought they would. But very often you're surprised and you're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that, especially with the Enter collabs when he used some of my sounds in a way that I would have never arranged them. But I was so creative and fresh the way he did it that I was like, oh, almost made me feel uncreative at times, because I was like, it's some of my sounds, but the way he used them, it doesn't sound like my sounds anymore. He just resampled or placed them in a way that I wouldn't have done. I think that's the most interesting thing about collabs. It opens your mind to the possibilities and it brings you out of your own bias, because very often you'll be like, no, I want it like that. But then the other person does it in a different way and you're like, oh, this actually sounds so much better than what I thought was sounding good. And then you're like, okay, I'll try to be more open-minded now. I think collabs are incredibly important, especially the ones in the room with another person. Online is amazing, and that's unfortunately not always possible to do it in person. But online, but together in a room, you learn the most, I think.
Yeah, man. No, I love that. Absolutely love that. So yeah, back to sort of like your relationship with Mousetrap. Um, ha is this the beginning of more Screamarts material to come on Mousetrap? Can you share anything in that sense?
With Joel, with that mouse, it was kind of implied that there will be more, but I think it's a little bit too early to 100% say, but I'm definitely open for it 100%. Right now, I really want to concentrate on promoting the album and getting the support on that and playing that out. And I want to concentrate on that right now. But I'm very open to it. I think it's a very professional label with great communication as well, which labels sometimes lack. And you really get constant updates from them about everything they do. It was really a refreshing way. They would constantly say, we pitched it to that playlist. We did this and that. We did this and that. Here's a report of stats and whatnot. And you just don't ask for it. You just get it. So I very much welcome good communication. I'm maybe too communicative sometimes and want too many infos and want to know too much about what's going on, but it's my music. So I think it's very important for me to be inquisitive about these type of things. But I
100%.
think it can rub people the wrong way as well. But with Mousetrap, I didn't have to do that at all. It was just constant updates and constant. And when I had feedback about something, the feedback was listened to as well. For example, when I said, feel free to always invite me to make collab posts on Instagram so we can both push it, I would instantly get a collab request and stuff like that, where you really feel like it's a good, clean communication and you can talk about anything. So that actually actually surprised me because it's a big label and I was expecting it to be more corporate, but it was actually a very easy way to communicate, very clear and to the point. Very awesome experience for me. Yeah.
I love that. It seems that it was a very smooth and natural process, which I think is obviously very important, firstly for yourself, because this is your art that you're putting out there, and you're entrusting that art with this label. And the fact that they can do that and, sort of keep you in the loop. With absolutely everything that's going on. That's testament to Mousetrap and the way they operate. And that's amazing. So I saw recently that you have been on Austrian radio with Camo and Crooked, sort of promoting
Yes.
the album. How did that go for you? How was that?
That was an incredible experience as well because I always wanted a relationship with Cameron Crooked because they're such a inspiration in so many ways, and they're also obviously a big part of the Austrian scene as well. And and then like a couple of months ago, they just wrote me, we're doing this FM4 show, and maybe you want to join us one day. And I was like super stoked about it. And at that point, I had sent them dubs. They have sent me dubs, and it's already like a relationship I've never thought I'd have with these guys. And and then I was like super excited about that. And then as these things go, it just took a little while to be finalized. And then basically they said, "Oh yeah, next week we're gonna do the show." And I was like, "Oh, it was perfect timing because the album as well. It was a couple of days before the album, so it was perfect for that as well." I think they obviously thought about that as well and kind of timed it in a good way. So it benefited me the best because obviously it was right before a release, and it was really nice just being there and meeting the FM4 guys. And there was so many people there. It was a bit felt a bit watched. Like the studio was full of people. There was like a crowd,
There was loads. I
and
saw I saw a video.
the speakers were pretty loud as well. It was like a rave, and I brought my girlfriend with me and Nikki Haflo and Manta, and yeah, we all had a great time. It was quite wholesome actually. It was lots of hugging and lots of it was an emotional experience because it's also quite a controversial mix to put on the radio. It was quite heavy for the radio as well because there was loads of my It Brain stuff in there and basically 100% Screamarts, except I think the Rumble track from Skrillex that I kind of doubled with Gluttonous, and Run from, damn, I'm shooting a blank right now. Rage Mode, of course. Rage Mode. Run also doubled with one of my tracks. But yeah, it was a lot of Screamarts stuff because I kind of wanted to have a lot of Screamarts on the radio. And also incredible support from FM4 generally because they've played Make Me Feel So a couple of times, even during the day on the radio. And that's also something I maybe didn't expect, but I'm very happy about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it's amazing to see that. You mentioned that you sort of have some more, you'll be promoting the album a lot in like recent times. What have you got coming up in the near future then that you can share with us? Is it more shows, or is there more music on the horizon? What can you share with us, mate?
There's definitely a couple of shows. This weekend I'm in Bregenz, and the weekend after that I'm in Leipzig, Germany. I'm gonna play a lot of label stuff. In December we have a huge Eat Brain party again. So there is a couple of shows where I'm gonna play a lot of the album stuff. But I've kind of did that for the last couple of months already. I've tried to already play as much as I could of it, but I think the final versions are just so much better in every way. I don't think I played all the new versions yet, so that's also something I'm looking forward to, playing all that stuff. And yeah, promotional wise, I'm just gonna try to really push it, make more posts about it, because I feel like a lot of the times artists kind of stop when it's out, and when in reality now I should push it more than before, because now it's out and now people can actually listen to it and people can actually play it and all of that. So I'm gonna try to make a few collaborative posts with the collaboration with the artists I collaborated with on the album as well, and just give it a big old push, and but nothing crazy or anything. I just want to really do that. Yeah.
No, I love that, mate. Love that, mate. So that, yeah, I've already said it, and I'll say it again. That album is absolutely incredible. So last question from myself: is there anybody that you'd like to give a special mention to? Maybe some inspirations who sort of helped you along the way with this album. Who would you like to give a give a nice shout out to?
There's a lot of artists I'm inspired by, but I think a constant for me has been Cohen Sound, in the way they've been just pushing the boundaries of electronic music, mixed with actual real instruments, which I'm trying to do. And I feel like a big part of it is because of them, because I feel like they got such an, especially with the like mix of light and dark, they do that so well, and that's something I really like. You have like this lush piano or Rhodes type of jazzy thing going on, and it drops into like this massive neurofunk bass. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of like exactly my jam, cinematic, destructive, yet at the same time liquid and soft. It's a very interesting mix for me, and very inspiring, obviously, from many different points. They're all great, both great musicians in many ways, and sound designers as well. I shout out. It's impossible to shout out all the people. I think in a way I have to shout out Emperor as well, because when I grew up, when I started producing drum bass primarily, his track "She Said" came out, and maybe then I also have to shout out Calix and TB for that, like just for this sound, with an actual real bass in the tunes. And I think it actually led to my inspiration, from actually a lot of my tracks, and also Resonant Stride, because there is a bass line in there, an actual bass line that I played mixed with electronic elements. And maybe it wouldn't have happened without these guys. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, you cannot tell these things, but I was always inspired by the mix of real instruments and electronic instruments. And these guys are doing it. Cohen Sound are doing it. Emperor is doing it. Calix and TB and these guys. Document One as well. So these guys, I can give a shout out, obviously, to everyone who worked with me on the album. It's amazing to work with everyone there. And obviously, big shout out to everyone who kind of helped me with my self-esteem over the years. I mean, Noisia, I think, played my very first official release, and I don't know why they played it. Maybe it was vibey enough, but definitely wasn't anywhere close to their level. Maybe they caught a vibe on it, but I think it really helped me to find the confidence to keep going. I mean, I would have kept going anyway, but I mean, commercially, really try to push myself, because these guys gave me a push. Type Cell from Subplate Recordings signed one of my first things ever. These people are really important because they gave me a platform when I didn't have any followers or anything to show for, really, not even in production, in my opinion, compared to now. But they gave me the platform, and there's a few other labels now that don't even exist anymore. Moshpit Recordings, for example, it doesn't exist anymore. I couldn't even tag them because I had a little thank you post the other day as well. So it's good question, good timing. But they have no socials anymore. The link doesn't go anywhere anymore. I clicked on the link of one of the tracks I made with Manta. Actually, doesn't go anywhere anymore. fractal. No, it wasn't fractal. Fragmented recordings also doesn't exist anymore. But a lot of my beginnings were possible because of these labels. Dark bass recordings. Couldn't find it on Instagram anymore either. Maybe it still exists, but that was my first official release slash freebie. So these type of things are very important to kind of get someone started in a direction. That's like over 7 years ago now. So
Yeah, man.
time
No,
flies. Yeah.
love it. Love it. Well, mate, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me and talking to me about the album. It's out now on Mousetrap. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in to watch this. Yeah, Screamarts. Marv, you're an absolute legend, mate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Had a great time as well talking about these things.
Big up, mate. Big up.